Well, good afternoon. I'm Timothy Alben. I'm the superintendent of the Massachusetts State Police, and I know there's a lot of interest in some of our internal matters that have occurred here at our headquarters, and I wanted to be able to go over a few of those concerns, and then at the end I'll certainly take a few questions. I don't have prepared comments. I'm just going to talk about what went on here today with respect to Sergeant Murphy, but I do want to preface this by saying that I cannot talk about matters that are go to the investigation of the Boston bombing or any of the details concerning that. So if you would just keep that in mind before we get going. Let me begin by describing to you our disciplinary process here, or at least outline some of the concerns I think that are out there. We have what's known as a duty status hearing, and that's what took place here today. And basically, the duty status hearing is an administrative process to deal in a timely fashion with issues that arise throughout the department. So in this case, Sergeant Murphy was placed on an administrative leave last week. We could do that for a period of 1 day initially by his immediate supervisor, and then by the division commander for an additional 5 days. And then what that does really is give us a little bit of time to assess what exactly the underlying circumstances of a potential violation are, to deal with those, to do some assessments, if you will. This is not part of a disciplinary process, and I think there's been a lot of misgivings and misunderstanding out there in the media and in the public about what the intent of today's hearing actually was. So there was never any intention, nor would there be any result today, disciplinary action brought against Sergeant Murphy in any way. We have very well thought out and well established processes in this department for conducting internal investigations. They are done in compliance with our own rules and with the collective bargaining agreement that we have with the State Police Association of Massachusetts. And so that'll take some time. And we do that in a fair and equitable way. We collect facts, and then down the road, should it get to that point, an employee, any employee, would have the right to a trial board before a group of officers here in this department. But we're talking weeks, really, and months down the road. I want to talk a little bit about Sergeant Sean Murphy. Sergeant Murphy has been a member of this department for 25 years, and most recently, the last few years, assigned here to our Public Information Office at General Headquarters right next door. He's been at most all of our major events. He's covered most of our major operations. He's been at many, many of our critical incidents that we've covered over the last few years. Sean has been, I think, fairly an exemplary employee here. He has no disciplinary record that I can speak to. There's no blemish there. He's a man of character. He's a man of honor. And he's a person who's come in here and really given a great deal to this organization. Sean goes down every year to the National Memorial in Washington and interacts with our families who have lost a department member, for example. He interacts with local police departments who have done the same thing. Sean does a lot of our displays throughout the building, or some of the things that you see online through some of our services. He's a conscientious man. And I have no reason to doubt that whatever he did was motivated by his own conscience and his own feelings about what occurred. But I don't think that that should ever be misconstrued or misunderstood, that this organization, this Massachusetts State Police, is not made up of 2,100 people who might share similar feelings about that, including this colonel. This has put us all in a very, very difficult situation. We are all adversely affected and motivated, if you will, by seeking justice for everyone that's involved in the bombings that occurred on April 15th and after that. And you heard me say that during that entire week, and I'll say that again today. Because we have to put in place a disciplinary process and to deal with some violations here, doesn't mean that we have any less empathy or concern or sympathy for people or families that lost loved ones or who were severely injured throughout that incident. As the colonel of this department, I have a responsibility to everyone here to maintain and apply those rules and regulations for everyone. If we get into a situation where we allow employees to cherry pick and to choose what confidential information can be shared with the public or the media in pending investigations or prosecutions, then we've lost the integrity of the Massachusetts State Police. And not only do I owe that to this department, I owe this to the FBI, I owe it to the Boston Police Department, I owe it to the Watertown Police Department, I owe that to the Collier family, and I owe that to the Donahue family, and to those families of those victims on April 15th. And I take that responsibility very, very seriously. So I would hope that we don't confuse the issues here. So, in moving forward, we need to maintain the integrity of this and every criminal investigation and prosecution that the state police is involved with. We are not in the business of taking issue with commercial publications or offering information that refutes what's published out there. We deal with hundreds of cases on a daily basis in where confidentiality and the integrity of the case in furtherance of the criminal justice process is primary in our minds, in our actions. We cannot afford to let pretrial publicity in any way impede this prosecution or any others that we're involved with. And no one should be making decisions unilaterally about what information can be shared and what cannot. And that applies to this colonel and every member of this Massachusetts State Police. So, having said all that, I'll take a few questions, but again, I want to forewarn that I cannot discuss the particulars of this case.
Can you talk about the disciplinary hearing? There was a union representative and then the sergeant. Who's on the other side, and what are possible outcomes? Restricted duty? Did his firearm get taken away?
So we have a board of officers that hear testimony or review documents that are submitted. Essentially, it is a preliminary hearing, if you will, that will result in an internal investigation. There are some things that took place in there, but again, I have to protect the integrity of that process as well, and of Sergeant Murphy's rights in that process. So I can't discuss specifically what's been done in his case.
What does it mean to be placed on restricted duty?
Well, restricted duty does not mean he's suspended. It doesn't mean his pay or his position is taken away. Typically, restricted duty would mean that he would be in an administrative position for some period of time until we have an opportunity to further assess the situation.
What are potential outcomes of this investigation? Is termination one possibility?
Well, I think in the realm of possibilities, you could probably arbitrarily use that word, but in the reality of it, I don't see Sergeant Murphy being terminated for this particular set of circumstances, no.
So distilling it down, he acted on his own and potentially injured the entire Massachusetts
Well,
State Police.
I don't want to, again, I don't want to put my own interpretation of the case or what he has or hasn't done. We work with prosecutors, in this case the United States Attorney's Office. It's up to them to make those decisions about what has been or has not been compromised. But the rest of it, I think, speaks for itself.
Colonel, you said he probably would have been terminated. What could happen to him if he's not being?
Well, there's a realm of possibilities. Everything from a letter of counseling to some period of lost time, for example. And again, in the realm of possibilities, we have a very specific organizational chart that we follow for disciplinary matters. And it could, conceivably, the idea of termination could be out there. But again, I'm the colonel of the state police. I'm going to say to you that that is not a realistic option in this case.
Have you heard the public's concern?
I have. I've heard it loud and clear, yes.
And what's that mean to you, if anything?
Well, I can understand the public perception. What I want the public to understand is this responsibility that we have as investigators not to do this, that there is a process here in which we guarantee the rights of those that are prosecuted. And what we don't want to do, not the state police or anyone else, is do anything that compromises this case, other cases, or some of the discussions that are going on, very serious conversations regarding this case in particular.
Colonel, what was the reaction when you saw the photos that were released? I know you've seen them before, but the fact that they were put out there in the public domain and the reaction to this,
Right.
do you have any?
Yeah, I was disappointed. You know, I know Sean. I have a high regard for Sean Murphy, and I was surprised, and I'm disappointed, frankly.
When's the next hearing? Or when's the next step in the investigative process?
I don't have the exact date. The board has stipulated that. There's certain things that have to be done within a certain time frame. But it'll take weeks, if not months, to actually vet out the entire investigation.
Who will make the final determination? You said something, there's a board of overseers?
Yeah, well, technically speaking, we would have a trial board here within the department. A board of superior officers conceivably could hear evidence in the case, and then render a verdict, if you will, on that. And there are several layers of appeal even beyond that, and outside the department as well. So the implementation of any discipline would come to my office. But even with that, and I'm talking now theoretically about any case, there are several layers of appeal outside.
Colonel, do you know how many pictures were released, and did you ask the magazine not to print them?
No, I think the magazine had made a decision to do that before we even were made aware of the fact that they had them. So there was no conversation beforehand with the magazine. And to answer how many, I don't know.
Dozens or hundreds? Or
Don't know.
no one's told you at this
No.
point?
But that'll be part of the follow-up investigation.
Could you guess approximately? Is it 3 pictures?
I don't want to guess. I think we'll just wait and see how the investigation plays out and get a better handle on it. Anything else?
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Colonel.